Hello, welcome back to the channel. You're joining me in the greenhouse for a very special episode that is going to announce some changes to the channel if you hang on until the end, but I'm also going to answer some of your questions. Now, this is the best place to start really, because the first question I'm going to answer is from Shelby of Late Bloomer Diaries, and Shelby asked if there was a specific plant that I had my heart set on growing, and the answer to that is absolutely yes, and there's two, so I'll answer this from both a flower point of view and from vegetable point of view. The first one is actually in the greenhouse right now and it's not doing very well. In fact, I've just potted them on to see if I can make them come on any better. They're in some different compost now, but these are straw flowers. Ever since I saw straw flowers on Hannah Gingergrow's allotment last year, I have absolutely been in love with the idea of growing them this year. They were the first seeds I bought last year and I really am looking forward to seeing them. If you don't know what straw flowers are, they are a beautiful looking flower, but texture wise they actually do feel like straw, even the petals. They are such a unique flower and I highly recommend trying to grow them. Everyone said they're difficult to germinate. I had no problems with germination, but they've sat like that now for about 5 weeks. So I've had some in the house, some outside. I'm now trying different compost to see if it will just spur them on into doing something. Vegetable wise, the thing that I've been ridiculously excited about, it's actually patty pans. I saw them in an artisan market last year and I'd never heard of them, I'll admit it, and I was absolutely blown away by these little spaceship plants, and I can't wait to grow patty pans this year. So to answer your question, straw flowers and patty pans. But while I'm in the greenhouse, perhaps I'll just show you around to how mad the space has gotten. It's rather full at the moment. I'm running out of space and there is a project to help me with that which will be coming in the next video. A little sneak peek, I'll insert it up here now. I have lots of marigolds. This is some cosmos coming up. This is the pot marigold calendula. I also have some needles and pins as well. Lots of sunflowers coming, so that's Linda at the Feel Good Gardens challenge coming. Hopefully one of these will be a giant. These are globe artichoke seeds, and I also have, if you look up here on the shelf, just coming through, some cardoons. These seeds were sent to me by the lovely Nanu from plot number 9. Nanu sent me these seeds because she knew how much I loved the episode that she did last year of her mum eating what she thought was a globe artichoke, which turned out to be a cardoon, which is just an ornamental artichoke, not an edible version. And if you haven't seen it, honestly, go and find it on Nanu's channel because it's absolutely hilarious. More marigolds. There's my next. That's Paco growing up there. Not such happy marigolds here, but I have moved them up here on this shelf. Celeriac. Lots of Sophinias. These were sent to me by Adam from The Weekend Gardener, so thank you for those, Adam, who will also be making an appearance in my next video. Lots more bedding plants on the shelves here. Not sure how many hanging baskets I think I'm going to have. I've got snapdragons and foxgloves over here. These are another experiment because both of these trays were seedlings at exactly the same time, and for some reason the tray on the left is doing so much better than anything on the right. Is that the root trainers that they like? I don't know. Same compost, same sowing date. My first job for today is actually to get these ranunculus planted out. Very much inspired by Kerry at Dog on the Plot over these purchases from the local garden centre. I think we are enablers of each other there. So we'll take these outside, we'll get them planted, and we might just answer another question. This is where the ranunculus are going. I think it looked nice to see some colour here during summer. And if I can get those pesky straw flowers to grow, some of those will be going in here as well. Kerry did ask quite a cheeky question, and that was, would I prefer 50 greenhouses or 1 polytunnel? I don't have 50 greenhouses. I think I should just clarify that one here. But to answer the question, in all honesty, I don't think I can make that decision, because since we've put this garden in, I have only had a polytunnel and greenhouses. I've not had one or the other, and I'm going to use them to grow very different things. So yeah, I think the greenhouse is definitely the thing for starting plants off in. It's just a beautiful space to be. It does stay warmer overnight, but the polytunnel, it's just going to come into its own this summer. So that's probably a question that I should be asked in another 1,000 subscribers time, when maybe I'll have had a season worth of growth in the polytunnel to compare what I've gotten the most out of. So sorry Kerry, I can't give you a more firmer answer than that. Now another question that I had, it came up a couple of times. Little Shed Diaries, Claire, thank you, and Jimmy at Plot 41B, thank you very much Jimmy for your question, was whether I use Comfrey Nettles etc. for fertiliser. And yes I do. This area behind me here is what I call Messy Corner. This is an old summer house, they used to call it, from donkeys years ago, that I think they used to do outdoor washing in. And there are plans later on this year to convert this into a food store. Need to get the ivy off of the roof and get it all sorted. So that's an exciting future project. But in Messy Corner is this tub. And in here, there are the nettles that I use to make nettle fertiliser. It's not the nicest smell, I have to say. I dilute that 1 in 10, 1 part of that to 10 parts water to feed all of my plants. Now I don't have any comfrey here, but I have ordered some comfrey called Bocking 14, and that should arrive, I think it was May time, and it's an non-invasive comfrey because there's no seeds, I believe, in the flowers. So to reproduce it you have to take cuttings. So I'll be using comfrey tea as well in the future, and I'm going to plant the comfrey around the compost bin because I thought it might get the nutrients from the compost bin as well to give it more nutrients for when I'm feeding it to my plants. Here on the garden, want to harvest some of this purple sprouting broccoli, which absolutely looks amazing. You're going to notice that I'm now not wearing the same clothes that I was wearing while I was making this video. But quite funnily, it leads into the question I was going to answer whilst I was harvesting the broccoli yesterday, which you didn't get to see me harvest. Question from Emma and Sam, who are from @House of Ted on YouTube. Because the question that they'd asked me was whether I ever made any silly mistakes. And apparently I can add not press record to that list of silly mistakes as well. What I was going to say was that as a new gardener, my biggest mistakes were regarding how far apart I planted things, because I honestly had absolutely no idea how plants grew. Namely things like this purple sprouting broccoli, because, well, I'm 5'4" and this is how tall it is. I expected it to grow the same as every other broccoli, but no. It doesn't. I also grew a courgette in the greenhouse last year. Yep, you heard that right. I had no idea how big that courgette plant would grow either. And I went away for a week with my dog in the camper van, and I came back to a plant that wouldn't fit outside the greenhouse door. So that's where it lived. It actually harvested really, really well, had no powdery mildew issues. So even though it was a mistake, I'm kind of tempted to put a courgette in the polytunnel this year. What do you think about that idea? Stupid? Probably. I'm just in the little grassed area off the edge of the plot now where I have my fruit trees planted, and I'm delighted to say that in spite of this continually flooding over winter, that the plum tree, the pear tree behind me and the apple tree over there are now all coming back into bud. So they've survived this first winter. We're going to be putting in some drainage very shortly across this area to hopefully prevent this area from flooding again next year. I also have dwarf patio fruit trees in these planters. There's a pear and another 2 apples, so that they're all in the pollination group 4, so that they help to pollinate each other. Delighted to say that all of these are now in bud because these were bought as bare root stock. These fruit trees lead me on to a question which came in from Nick at That's British Homestead. And Nick asked if there was anything that I'd love to grow in the garden that I can't grow because we're in the UK and it's the wrong climate. And Nick said that she would love to grow pineapples and mangoes. I'd also love to grow pineapple and mango, but I have to say mango doesn't agree with me, if you know what I mean. So for me, it would have to be coconut. I absolutely adore coconut. From coconut covered in chocolate, to coconut yogurt, to coconut milk. I love coconut. So if I could grow something in this country, it would definitely be coconut. Just thought I'd let you know that the tomatoes that I sowed last week have started germinating. The ones in the greenhouse haven't yet, but the ones in the house have. The only one that's not come up so far is the great yellow blue, which I'm really disappointed about. So I am trying to chit some more of those seeds now to see if I can get them to germinate. But that has made me think of a question that came in from Jimmy, who is very cheeky, who asked if I like tomato soup or tomato ketchup. And I think if you all watched my previous video on tomatoes, Jimmy knows the answer to that one already, and that's a resounding no. Now, no spring plot tour would be complete without a look inside the fruit cage, because lots of things are wakening up in here and I'm really impressed about it. And the family are quite excited about the fruit cage because whilst everyone seems to have ideas of what they do and don't like in terms of vegetables, it seems quite unanimous that we all like all of the fruit that we're growing. So we're going to be fighting over the fruit. The last time we were in the fruit cage, everything looked rather dead, didn't it? Because it was dormant over winter. But all of the currants are in leaf now. I've got a red currant, a black currant, and behind me I have a white currant. So I'm really pleased about those. Now, I have shown you the cherry tree before. This is heavily in bud, and that is one of the things I'm most excited about to have in the fruit cage. I think I told you on a previous video that I had one in the garden years ago and I never ever managed to get any cherries off of it. They were either not ripe enough to eat or they'd just gone the next day. The blackbirds had taken them. So I'm hoping that I'm going to get to taste some cherries. This little beauty in the frame here is my gooseberry bush. This is a Giggles red gooseberry, a dessert gooseberry. It's looking incredibly healthy, so I do have high hopes for this one. And it's in the corner of the fruit cage so that it can grow out there and hopefully not cause too many problems walking past it. Some of the bare root raspberry canes are just starting to come back into life now. But what I am most concerned about in here is the grapevine. Now, I know we are further north than people down south, but I have heard of people having buds on their grapes, so I'm not entirely certain yet whether the grapevine has survived winter. I'm going to give it a month or so and just see how we get on, because I'll be quite upset if it hasn't. It's supposed to be a red seedless grape. I do hope it has survived winter and it's just a little bit slow, because obviously if it hasn't and I have to replace it, then we're another year before we'll end up with grapes, won't we? So fingers crossed for that. But it's just been so wet this winter, and then we did have a really cold period, didn't we, in January? So hope so. Hope it's okay. Blueberry bushes are all starting to put up some new leaf now. The one in the middle is a blue blueberry and the two on the outside are pink lemonade. The final piece of the fruit cage puzzle is the strawberry bed in the middle. These sweetheart strawberries are supposed to be enormous, and I'm not much for the seeds of strawberries, and every variety has roughly the same amount of seeds. So obviously the bigger the fruit, the less seeds it seems to have on them compared to the flesh, which is why I'd quite like to use those strawberries for making the jam, so I could have less seedy jam if possible. I absolutely adore the fruit cage. It's really strong and sturdy. It's 3.9 metres by 3.9 metres, which is the smallest size fruit cage that you can have from First Tunnels, but it's well worth the money. It really doesn't move. It's so sturdy. In fact, you could probably put metal mesh around this and use it for a chicken run if you really wanted to. I'm not sure how well this structure comes across on the camera actually, but this is going to be where I'm going to have some outdoor tomatoes at the back of the pumpkin and squash beds. And obviously I'm going to have pumpkins going over this archway, hopefully. So it's nearly time to sow those now, and that I'm really looking forward to. If you're growing pumpkins this year and you're growing them to climb over an archway, which varieties are you growing? Because I'm growing a Kuchikuri, Baby Boo and Jack Be Little, hopefully, over this archway. Quick fire round, everybody on Instagram these are. An Aberdeen allotment. No, I don't have children to help in the garden. I have a 21-year-old daughter called Isabel that still lives at home. While she'll eat the produce, she's certainly not going to get her hands in the soil. She's quite interested in flowers though, so I think she might plant up some of the baskets and things, but she won't be helping on the vegetable garden. Garden of Weeden asked how long I get to spend on the plot each week. Basically, I spend as much time as I need to procrastinate on jobs that need doing in the house. Beautifulgreysallotment asked if I have a favourite thing to grow in the garden. I guess my top three there would be broccoli, peas and cucumbers. Absolutely adore cucumber. Down this side of the tunnel are my carrot and parsnip beds, and I'm pleased that we have germination on my first parsnips. These are Tender and True and Gladiator. And I also have germination on my first 3 rows of carrots. I will be succession sowing carrots into this other box, and I need to build this one up on the end to match these. Been undecided whether to have it as yet another parsnip or carrot box, because we do adore carrots so much. And also, when I have my horses this side of the fence over summer, it'd be quite nice to actually be able to pick them the odd carrot and pass it over the fence to them. I think I'll be their best friends. If you've been with me a while, you know I direct sowed some of these broad beans before Christmas, and then I planted some in the greenhouse and later transplanted them. They've all caught up with each other now. It made absolutely no difference which way around I did it. They're heavily in flower, so I'm expecting them to start cropping in the next few weeks. That makes me think of a question from Amir's allotment, where he asked me if there was a particular gardening style that inspired me the most, and if we were going to see any more of that in the garden. Well, I'm not entirely certain that I have a style that I've been inspired by yet. We'll have to wait and see what develops over the course of this year. But I do like lots of different gardening styles, including yours, Amir. So whilst I don't particularly have a gardener that I'm specifically inspired by, I like lots of different gardening styles. This plot itself probably did have a big inspiration, and that was Danny from the Grow Up channel. It was his grapevine plot. One of the first videos I looked for on YouTube related to gardening was how to build the mini polytunnel, and that's how I found his channel. And his mini polytunnel is on his grapevine plot, and I absolutely loved all of the straight lines and the wood chip paths, and I thought, yeah, wood chip paths, I've got enough lawns to cut as it is. I don't need any more grass around beds. So I'm not sure about gardener, but definitely had the plot inspired by somebody. Now, whilst I love the wood chip look, especially when it's dry, it does also lead me to another question, which actually came from my sister at TheLottiePlottie on Instagram. And she asked what I would do differently if I was to design the plot again. And to be honest, as much as I like the look of this wood chip, I also hate it, because the blackbirds dig it up something rotten. So every morning when I come across, I'm constantly filling in holes where the blackbirds have been rooting for worms in the wood chip. So I don't know what I'd put down instead. On my sister's plot, she's got hardcore, and actually nothing digs in that, and it stays quite nice and firm underfoot. So would I put gravel down instead? I don't know. I'm torn, because I love the look of it. Not so much when it's wet like this, but as it dries up, the wood chip looks beautiful, but it really is a pain because of those pesky birds. A question from Harry, who is half of at Dadandsonallotment on Instagram, asked me if I had any pets and if any of them were my favourite. Now, this one behind me is called Dexter. He is a Brittany, bit of a bird dog. That's what he's looking for now, water hens on this pond behind me. Now, I wouldn't say that he was my favourite, not really. I have other dogs. I have Harvey and Bess, who are really old dogs now, but he's the one that I can go out and have adventures with. So I guess I get to do some of my favourite things outside of the garden with Dexter that I don't get to enjoy anymore with the older dogs. Also have 3 horses, but I don't do much with those. They're just giant lawnmowers, really. Well, this one here, he's a bit of a trouble. So I'm going to go and carry on my walk, Harry, before I lose the dog. And I'll catch you back in the garden shortly. We've made it to the polytunnel now, where you can see some of the things that are growing here. Calabash, red cabbage, I have kaleets growing here, cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. This is the tender stem broccoli that I sowed on the collab video with Eli last week, so that's already come up. Lots of lettuces here that need a lot of pricking out. Globe artichoke, and then as I walk along, this is all of the sweet peas that are germinating and some onion sets ready to go out. Now, Ali from My Rusty Garden asked an interesting question, and that is why I decided to put the garden on YouTube. And that's a really good question, Ali, because I think that the reasons why have probably changed over the months, and you all viewing and subscribing and supporting the channel have probably slightly changed the whys. It was partly to show family what I was up to, but mainly so that I had a record of what I was doing, so that I could look back on and remember the timeline of when we did things. And it's amazing to think that I actually opened this YouTube account on the 28th of June last year, so it's just over 9 months old, and things have escalated massively since that point. And you know, I initially did it because I had the 3 extra beds on the lawn. That was way before we even envisaged having this level of plot. The title of this video alludes to some changes happening with the channel, and I hope that you'll be as excited as I am about those changes. When I first picked up the phone to record last year, I only had a few vegetable beds on our lawn. This whole plot wasn't on the agenda at all, and things have escalated somewhat since then. While the Veg Plot Thickens may make sense for that, we have big gardens here that I don't really show, and I'd like to be able to show some more of the projects that we're doing around the home and include our home gardens as well as the vegetable garden in the footage. We also happen to live on a 130-acre farm, and I'd quite like to be able to take you around projects that we're doing on the farm from time to time, including checking on the horses, counting livestock over summer, and any conservation projects or repairs that need to be done around the farm. Mainly, I just like you to be able to see where this plot settles in our landscape, and I think that's quite a unique perspective. So, without further ado, please say goodbye to the Veg Plot Thickens, and I welcome you to the farmyard garden. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!